What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 14 of the Ball Talk Pod. Got some big news in the NBA to discuss tonight. The trade deadline just passed, and the Thunder's biggest acquisition wasn't even a trade. Mr. Chet Holmgren is returning. Chris Osborne, how are we feeling about that?
The demon himself is back. That's what J-Dub said. And I tend to agree with what J-Dub said. So, very excited. Obviously, it means a lot for this franchise. And having a few more games than we originally planned to see him back is going to help everything, hopefully, help everything kind of smooth over before the playoffs. It gives us a little more runway, which I'm excited about. So, I think these next, well, how many games are left? Like 30 something, 33?
Yeah, we've played
Uh,
49 games.
I'll do the quick math. 82 minus 49, 33. I was right.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. I think these next 33 games are going to be super entertaining to watch, regardless of wins or losses, due to just trying to visualize what this team can be. Do I think they're going to lose a lot of games? No. But I think there might be some rough patches that I think the fans, I'm going to go ahead and say the fans need to take a deep breath and accept that there might be some bumps in the road.
I think that's fair. I think what's crazy is, and it just shows how privileged Thunder fans are, is what will be rough. 90% of the NBA will take what we will be complaining about, maybe even a higher percentage of that. But what I think is crazy is Chet's technically returning quicker than the updated timeline suggested. Because it
Right.
was, when was it? Like January 17th or 18th, somewhere around there was his update. Like he got hurt November 10th. They said he would be hurt, or they would provide a update on his return to play policy in 8 to 10 weeks.
Right.
They went through that to the 10th week. Like they did not do it early, which kind of made sense because everybody was like, okay, it's a freakishly tall, lengthy, skinny 7-footer. Let's ease him back by all means. And I was 100%. And I said on this podcast, Sharpie him in to the lineup the first game after the All Star break, which is not a wrong prediction. He hopefully,
Sure,
obviously,
knock
will
on
be
wood.
there.
I'm going to knock on wood. I'm going to knock on
He
glass.
will be there. But then they give the update in January saying that he will be. They say reevaluated, but basically it was projected that he would play in 3 to 5 weeks, which
Right.
was exactly lining up with the first game after the All Star break was the 5th week.
Mm-hmm.
And based off of what I said about kind of how precautionary the Thunder feel like they are, it almost was like felt like a guarantee. Like, yeah, we're gonna get through the All Star break and Chet's gonna be back. And there had been no inkling of, like, obviously we saw a practice video on Monday, which was felt so on purpose
Right.
that they showed him
Mm-hmm.
going through drills, offense and defense drills. And you know, like I was thinking about it too, when Hartenstein came back, they upgraded him to questionable the beginning
Right.
of the game. Chet, they didn't even, he's not questionable. He is available. Like, it is not even kind of,
Right. It was it was much faster.
and I almost got, so I was in the car, so I didn't even, I had people texting me. You actually were the first text I saw, and you texted me and you said, now the most, like, interesting games of the season have been,
Right.
which is very true, but I was like, what are you talking about? Because I hadn't seen anything. Like, I was like, Chris has lost it. He just wants to see how Daniel Tice fits into this team.
Who was no longer on the team, by the way. We opened up a
We'll,
spot.
we'll get to that in a second. But the the tweet that Shams posted, one, I thought it was interesting that he was the one that broke it. Not to say that it's that crazy. He breaks basically everything in the NBA, but
R.I.P. Woj.
yeah, he's with the Bonnies now. But he, it was almost like, one, on purpose that they posted the videos on Monday. Two, it was almost on purpose that, like, they announced he was coming back on trade deadline day. Like, hey, Thunder fans, we're not going to make any big moves. Don't freak out.
From Shams. Yeah, totally.
Chet's coming back. But then also, it was like you read it's trade deadline day. You get the notification from Shams that there is a trade, and it starts with Oklahoma City Thunder, star Chet Holmgren, and you're kind of double guessing, like, did we just trade Chet?
I gotta say, Ben, that thought never entered my mind. I don't know why you thought that, but I mean, maybe
Well, I
you
didn't even
have
see the
like
tweet
PTSD
originally.
from like the Luca stuff, but I no thought in my mind were we trading Chet.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think that. It was more so reading stuff after the fact where people were like, kind of heart skipped a beat for a second, thinking that we had traded Chet, and I was like, I think he might be obviously more untouchable than Luca, but
No,
according to the last week, according to the last week,
I guess that's
um,
true. You're right.
but yeah, I mean, just fantastic day. I remember sitting in my room on November 10th because it was the day before Veterans Day or something like that. So I was off work on Monday. I stayed up late because it was a Sunday night that he got hurt, and I remember sitting there being like, "This is going to be such a long 3 or 4 months." I had no idea how we were going to perform. I thought we would at least maintain. I did not anticipate us being 40-9 at the time of his return. But I was sitting in my room. I was like, man, that tweet when Doug announces Chet will come back is gonna just be the best drug I could ever have. And I didn't even get it, like I just said. But you texted me, like, driving to work. I got chills.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, we made it.
Yeah. I it does feel like a long road that we've come to and we've finished the journey and we're finally in whatever the journey is. It feels like it's finished. And I know you're not going to be at the game tomorrow, but I am. And I know that when they I we have to
I don't
get
know if
there
he's gonna
early.
start.
He has to start. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if he plays 5 or 6 minutes. Chet has to start because of what it means to the fan base that he's back playing again. You have to give them, the fan base, their moment to cheer for him. Don't you agree? Like, there's a part of it like you have to give them, because it's going to be a roaring moment, a really big um, moment. They might announce him last. It might be like the first game in 5 years that Shea's not announced last. It might be Shea, and then it might be Chet, just so that he can get the longest applause.
Well, and if you're doing that, like when Hartenstein checked in for the first time, and a few other guys, you almost can't guarantee that like he's gonna get a moment because there might be a timeout or
Right.
something where like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, we'll announce him after the break or something like that, even though he's been standing at the scorer's tables for 5 minutes.
Right.
I think he starts. How that works out through the rest of the year, I think will be fascinating. I mean, it's a huge. It's a good problem to have for Mark having to figure out: do we start 2 7-footers? Do we start Casey Wallace? Do we start Aaron Wiggins? And I say all this. I don't think Chet will play like every game the rest of the way.
No, I don't either. I don't think he'll play every game, and I don't know if he'll play 30 minutes start the bat. I bet he plays like 15 minutes, 15 20 minutes, and then he works his way back up to 30 to 40, in time for the
I
playoffs.
think he played like 20. If I remember, he played even last year, just like 28 or 29. I think
Right.
he eclipsed 30 last year. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how Mark juggles all that. And as we mentioned, we get an additional 5 games
Right.
that we didn't think we would get. There's 5 games left until the All Star break, and most of them are at home, which is nice. And we had mentioned before, we really hope that Chet's first game was at home,
Mm-hmm.
so that worked out. But what's interesting is the Thunder schedule going into the All Star break is 5 games in 7 nights. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that Chet plays three to four of those.
Yeah, do you think he plays the back to back in Memphis? Because we play Toronto tomorrow night, and then we fly to Memphis and we play the next night on Saturday.
Which
Like
will be a great game regardless.
that's a game I could see him like not playing a ton of minutes or missing it altogether, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and with Hartenstein when he came back, it's a different situation because he came back and one, we didn't have a big.
We
Jay Will
needed
was still
him,
hurt too.
right?
He did not start, but he came in and I mean that was like a religious experience watching him play basketball that night. And mainly because we hadn't seen a 7-footer take the court since Chet's injury wearing a Thunder jersey. So it was just
Mm-hmm.
nice to remember what that looked like.
Right,
But he played, I would have to go back and look at the box score, but he played at least 20, 25, maybe closer to 30 minutes in that game. And we needed every minute of it because Portland,
yeah.
we can get into that later. Portland's actually a decent basketball team now.
I remember him like begging. I remember watching him look to the sideline and be like,
Like,
"Mark, I
why?
can stay in. Like, let me
Yeah.
play some more." Yeah, I do remember that, and we needed all of it. You're right.
Which I bring that up because Hartenstein came back after the game in his press conference and was like, I'm still not tired. But that's because he broke his hand. If you break your hand, you don't have, like, he was still doing uh, all of his sprints and cardio and things like that. He could do all of that. Chet, obviously, with a broken hip, wasn't doing the same. And
Right.
so I think that's why it's hard to compare those situations uh, and why I don't think Chet will just ramp in. Like Hartenstein hit the ground running, and it was like outside of when he had that little calf strain, he's playing full basically since that first night. But I mean, it's just the best trade deadline acquisition the Thunder could have asked for was a healthy Chet, and
I
they
think
knew that because we didn't make any other big moves outside of it.
I think besides the Luca deal, obviously, Luca has proven it time and time again. It's the best acquisition at the trade deadline that any team in the NBA has made.
Best addition to a roster. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Acquisition is
yeah.
being used as
Loose
like
term.
a loose term. Yes.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and we play the Raptors tomorrow. They made a trade or two, but they also are basically tanking. They're trying to capture the flag, Cooper flag. They are sitting already. RJ Barrett and Jacob Puddle's their center. They don't really have a lot of depth. They traded away Kelly Olynyk. And so it's the hope is that it's not a great game in terms
Right.
of competitiveness in that game. And the Thunder run away with it. And then it's even more so just about getting 10, 15 minutes, whatever. And we say all this. The Thunder might be like, okay, yeah, here's 25 minutes of Chet Holmgren. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I heard maybe Andrew Slecht from the Athletic say that the Thunder usually don't people don't come off injury with a
With
minutes
a minute,
restriction.
yeah.
And so I wonder if that's going to be the case, but this is a different, I mean, they have like a 6 game lead on second place. They have, they've only lost 9 games. Do you really need to, you know, force this guy who, like you said, hasn't had much cardio, you know?
Who knows? I mean, who knows what his rehab has looked like and when he actually was cleared to run and do that kind of like weight bearing exercises on his hip.
Right. No, good point too.
Because
That's
the
all to say.
Thunder obviously are very, very sneaky. Not sneaky, just very proud
They're
to
very,
do business.
yes, yes, they very much are. But
One thing that I am very, very curious to see in terms of rotation, and obviously this will evolve. Tomorrow's not going to give us any kind of a final outcome on what our rotations are going to look like with a relatively fully healthy one outside of AJ Mitchell right now. If you start both of them, as it currently stands, Shea has played the first quarter of every game. He's played the whole first
not
quarter for
every
the most
game,
part.
but pretty
For the most
much.
part. Uh, Dub comes out so he can run the second unit in the second quarter, and Hartenstein comes out too to be a secondary ball, when I say ball, playmaker for the second unit. Last year, that was Chet. Chet
Right.
was starting this, like it was Dub and Chet that were the guys in the second quarter, and Shea had the first. And it's such a luxury, but I'm so curious to see if Mark, for the most part, obviously it's subject to change and depends on matchups. Does Mark tie Chet or Hartenstein to Shea's minutes in that first quarter, or like I'm so curious to see how he balances that out, especially if they both start.
I in my head, and obviously I know very little. So take this with a grain of salt, you ball heads out there. But um, I think Hartenstein really allows Shea a lot of freedom. So if we want to like keep playing that way, I think he kind of stays out there. And I think that while Hartenstein and J Dub have a lot of chemistry, I think Chet allows J Dub to play more free, and a little and shoots a little more. So I think that's the way I would lean. But obviously, Mark's going to do whatever he wants, and who knows, maybe he takes all three of them out and lets Shea lead kind of the second unit at the end of the first, and they come in with those three starters to start the second.
He might try that because I say all that. I do not think whoever plays with Shea, I don't think one of the centers is going to play the whole first quarter with Shea. Like it might be you start both of them for the first 4 or 5 minutes, you take one out for the next 3 or 4 minutes, and then sub them out, switch them again, so that there's like a big in the NBA, especially with the injury history and trying to keep everybody healthy. They don't need to play 12 minutes in a row. Very
No,
few people do.
right,
Like it's Shea, and then we'd have to look. I'm sure there's others, but it's a player like Shea, and so I would bet that they do a lot of substitutions even in the first quarter alone. But I agree with your logic. I think in terms of spacing and everything, and if you bring an Isaiah Joe in the first quarter, Wiggins has been shooting it well. Now we factor in Kayson's coming off the bench if that's what happens. So there's
right,
another guy. And so if you have those secondary guards with Shea plus Hartenstein with that shooting around them, that's one heck of a lineup. And then if you add in, we'll see how Chet looks and how he's able to progress, and if he still kind of has that same
pop.
pop off the dribble or shooting and things like that. His shooting and potential playmaking helps Dub a lot more than it would Shea.
Right. But I do
Uh,
think you answered your own question. I think because we don't want our bigs maybe playing 12 minutes, they might we'll probably see both of them each time. It might be like you said, Hartenstein will play with Shea, and then Chet will come in the last 3 minutes, and then it'll be Hartenstein and Dub, and then 4 minutes in, it's Hartenstein or it's Dub and um, the big fella. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's like you said in your text that I had no idea what you were meaning. It is the most fascinating
Yeah.
games to
And
watch.
I think Mark's the right tactician to figure it all out. Um, but, Chet wasn't the only acquisition the Thunder made. The Thunder also traded a second round pick for a second round pick. From
No,
who?
we didn't trade anything.
No, no, no. Before the Daniel Tice thing.
Oh, yes, that was on like Sunday night.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was that trade? It was like, we
we
just
traded
swapped second round
away,
pick.
yeah, pretty much with Charlotte, and it gets kind of confusing because the picks that were traded are not technically the picks of the Thunder or the Hornets. The Thunder traded away a 2029 second round pick to Charlotte for a 2030 Denver Nugget second round pick. Um, why we did this per se, I don't know. Obviously, Sam has his logic, but especially with what you see going on in Phoenix right now, I mean, they couldn't get Jimmy Butler at one point. Like Kevin Durant didn't even play in the Suns game last night because there were rumors that he was going to get traded, and so they're just kind of riding off and wasting Devin Booker's prime in the last few years of KD. 2029 could be a great pick. I say it'd be a second round pick, so it's not that big a deal. There's a good chance the Thunder are even the ones making this pick.
Right.
But in trading for a 2030 second round pick from Denver, there's been some kind of conspiracy theories that it has to do with like a trade in the future where we could trade Denver back their pick to get less protections on the first round picks that we have in theirs already.
Right.
But it's kind of a like it didn't have to be made, but Sam obviously has a strategy, and it's like it's not a big deal. It's
Right.
just you push it back 1 year. It's a different team that you also are betting on being, a top tier team in 5 years.
So that was
When you,
sort of like the amuse bouche of the trade for the Thunder, right?
yeah,
For the dinner portion of the trade deadline was Chet coming back. You had the appetizer being this sort of weird second pick swap. And
in the
then
middle of the night,
yeah,
it
in
just
the
was so
middle of the
random.
night, yeah. And then the salad for the dinner was we traded I don't know even who we got Daniel Tice from. Oh, New Orleans. We traded New Orleans nothing to get Daniel Tice and a second round pick.
This all had to do with one, the Thunder had an open roster spot at the time, and we can get into this later.
Well, that'll just yeah.
Yeah, because that's the appetizer after
Right.
the
That's the
the salad.
dinner. That's the no. That would be the dessert.
Yes, yes. But the Thunder had an open roster spot. The New Orleans Pelicans were about $1.9 million over the tax line. And there were penalties. There's a lot of complexity in terms of how much you have to pay, but they were over a certain line in terms of salary that would have made them pay a lot more in tax to the NBA, which I believe is then dispersed to the other teams not over tax. And so Daniel Tice's salary was like 2.1 million. So by us trading for it, we were comfortably below that level of the tax. So we absorbed that, and New Orleans gave us a second round pick basically to do that.
To
I think we
take on
sent
this.
them cash.
Right, probably.
Like the
So
most traded player in the NBA, cash considerations
yes. So we absorbed Daniel Tice, and
into an open roster spot.
it looked like we were just going to keep him on the roster. The trade deadline passed. We didn't make any other trades with him. Ended up today, we waived him. We said goodbye. We waved goodbye to him and opened up a roster spot for the rookie phenom AJ Mitchell himself to sign a 2-year deal with the Thunder. So really cool to see AJ Mitchell getting some shine, even with his turf toe, getting a full time deal, and that way he's available for the playoffs. So
But then the effect of that was we were able to take what was AJ Mitchell's two-way spot and we signed Brandon Carlson
oh, I didn't even see that.
into, yeah. So Brandon Carlson's now two-way contract. He will be with the Thunder the rest of the year. He won't be playoff eligible, which is fine. But he'll be able to play for our G League team now because we'll be able to send them back and forth between the G League, kind of like we do with Flagler and Mr. Alex Dukas. Uh,
Mr. Alex Dukas.
so the ripple effects of that Tice trade, everyone saw the writing on the wall. AJ Mitchell was going to get a standard contract. It was 2 years, $6 million was the contract that he got. He had to get promoted, I guess, air quotes promoted. I guess elevated from a two-way contract
Not
to
like
the active
promotions in the
roster.
NBA.
Yeah, yeah. AJ got promoted to an active player because two-way players are not eligible for the playoffs. And one thing that the Thunder have struggled with since AJ Mitchell got hurt was playmaking in the second unit when Shea is out. And he was a huge piece of that, which is not something I thought I'd be saying after we drafted him last year
Right.
or even to start this year. He's a major piece. I say major. He's a major secondary piece for us. And we'll see. I mean, the rotations shrink in the playoffs, but even just having the flexibility of having him, if he comes back healthy, he had surgery on his toe for turf toe. But that was kind of the ripple effect of everything. Taking on that contract to get a second round pick, waiving him, moving everybody up, AJ into that standard contract, and AJ or Brandon Carlson into the two way,
Yeah.
which is very fun because they both have played well.
Right.
Respective
100%.
ways.
well deserved promotions for those two fellas. But besides the trade deadline, the Thunder did play a game. They did beat the Suns pretty badly. I can't
140 to 109.
140 to 109. So they killed the Suns. Shea had
And
50
it did not
again.
feel that close.
It felt the Suns were just like, I mean, it felt close in the beginning because
We
Akogi
were
was,
losing at halftime.
yeah, Akogi was like
No, Royce O'Neal.
Royce
Royce.
O'Neal, sorry, not Akogi. Royce O'Neal was 5 for 5 in the first half, and so we were down 2. But then by the end of the third, we were up 25. So we did the Thunder thing where we just decided to play defense and score a bunch and get a bunch of steals, and we ended up flipping a 2-point deficit into a 25-point lead. So pretty great.
Did you see the stat that the Suns only hit one field goal in the third quarter last night?
No, I didn't, but I
Yeah.
it doesn't shock me because it felt like it was the second quarter, right? That it felt like it was a free throw. It felt like a college game where it was just like free throw after free throw.
It
But
started in the second and then continued into the third, where
right.
Chris and I were at the game together, sitting together last night, and it just took forever
Mm-hmm.
for that game to even when it was close, because it felt like you mentioned there was no rhythm, the flow was gone, because every single time it felt like a college game. You'd go down, here's a whistle, foul, free throws. Go down the other way, whistle, foul, free throw.
Right.
Um, but the Thunder, I mean, it's one of those you give props to the Suns because they hit shots in the first half. I don't think we necessarily defended at a high level, especially on our peak. But
Right.
I think the score was like 43 to 16 in the third quarter was what we scored them roughly. I mean, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but Shea had like eight. Shea outscored the Suns in the third quarter. I think he had 18. They had 16, and it's just, I mean, Mark doesn't like saying it, but there's a switch that this team flip, like they flip a switch and the game's over. But it's almost on like the defensive side of the ball. It's just so suffocating. They can't score to keep up.
Right.
But Shea, you mentioned he had 50 points. It was the third straight Wednesday that Shea scored over 50 points.
Which is just incredible. He was like one of like 10 guys or something that have scored 50 points in a 2-week span or something.
Hmm.
Just a crazy accomplishment for Shea.
And he's now leading the NBA in most 20-point games scored, most 30-point games scored, most 40-point games scored, and most 50 game scores. Uh, So, I mean, he's odds having like I've seen as high as minus 700 for the MVP.
Yeah, I was about to
It's
say
definitely not. I think it should be wrapped up. Jokic is going to have his
the
followers, and
voters.
it's well deserved because he is, a heck of a basketball player, top one or two. I mean, I think it's very obviously him or Jokic, but what Shea is doing this year and what the Thunder have done as a team, and then you factor in the Harden Chet. Harden started missing a lot of games. Even after coming back, he missed that, 10-day period
Right.
with that calf strain. Caruso has missed, feels like half the season at least, um, for different injuries here and there. And this team's 40 and
Mm-hmm.
because of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, for the most part. Everyone else has been playing well. We've seen a lot of growth from other people. But what Shea has done right now, I think he is the most important, most valuable player.
Yeah. Do you know how to spell SGA?
MVP.
MVP.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, we'll see. He has, like we said, Toronto's tomorrow. It's just, he's a Canadian. We'll see how he plays against them. The storyline will definitely more so be Chet, but it's going to be. We were talking about last night. There's not. We play Memphis Saturday. Memphis. I think that will be a fantastic game. It's not on a national broadcast, which is dumb, but the Celtics and Knicks do play that day, so that's who has the ABC primetime one. Uh, But then after that, you have the Pelicans at home. You have the Heat at home, who just traded Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. I think we close at Minnesota or something like that to go and
No,
look.
I think we have two Minnesota games after the All-Star break.
We played Minnesota. We played Minnesota three of in the last game of the All Star break and two of the first three after the All Star break. So we played them three out of
Wow.
four games. Uh,
It's gonna be like a playoff series. That's crazy.
it's a baseball series almost.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of games tomorrow night starting the Pelicans. The Heat, we'll see. They typically are pesky. They still have a heck of a coach and the roster. But after that really high-end basketball stretch to start the year, the Thunder are in the middle of a stretch where the games haven't felt as big.
Important.
But coming out of the break, like you said, we played Minnesota three times. Well, not coming out of the break, going into the break, and then after, we'll play Minnesota three times. Uh, and then the schedule ramps up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see how many points Shea can score in the next, 7 days leading into the All Star break next weekend. Uh, Speaking of the All Star break, the draft did happen tonight for the All Star game because the format this year is the All Stars are split up into three teams, and then the winner of the Rising Stars Challenge, that team is also in the tournament with the All Stars. And Shea was drafted to Charles Barkley's team. Charles said that he was going to have international flair. So every time he drafted somebody, he was like, I'm going to have my like, African delight, is what he said whenever he drafted Pascal Siakam. And he drafted Sengun and couldn't remember where he was from. So he said, I'm going to have my Houston delight, thinking that he's talking about cuisine.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Team Chuck's gonna kill everybody. They have
yeah,
Victor, Shea, Giannis,
Jokic.
Jokic. I mean that Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how. I mean, it all comes down to who actually cares.
which I think will be Team Kenny because
Well,
they've
I think it'll
got
be Team
Anthony
Kenny.
Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Jaron Jackson Jr., J Dub, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, and Tyler Hero.
Yeah, well, Kenny said before his strategy was like the next generation because he was like, I want guys that want to get out there and try to prove themselves. Um, so
Yeah, Team Shaq went with all the guys who have been there before and probably won't care very much.
well, LeBron and
LeBron,
AD will
Steph,
be on the same roster again.
AD, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, James Harden, and the Finals MVP Jaylen Brown, who was selected last.
Interesting. Well, what was crazy about that is it really did not matter in terms of like I don't know if there what the strategy was. Shea was the eighth pick in this draft, and then Dub was actually 11th. Dub went pretty early, which was cool to see. And when he got drafted, Kenny was like, "I'm going to reward winning because he's on a winning team." He's had a heck of a year. He announces J Dub, and Shaq says, "One of my favorite players."
Mm.
Um, so it's just cool to see the guys get those recognitions from all time greats. But yeah, the All Star game is next Sunday night, February 16th. Outside of Kaysen in the Rising Stars game, none of our guys are participating in the All Star Saturday night.
Which I don't
They'll
know if
be there.
Kaysen will even participate with that shoulder strain.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. He was questionable for the Suns or for the Bucks game, and then once they ruled out everybody, they shifted him, Dub, and Caruso all to out, and then Kaysen was ruled out immediately for the Suns game. Um, but I'd like to think that I don't think it's anything serious. We'll just see if it's anything that's like will be the main thing. But I hope he can because a player like Kaysen, with the role he has, his opportunities at the All Star weekend are few and far between. And those first 2 years are a good way to be able to be a part of All Star weekend.
No,
So
yeah. Oh, totally agree. Totally
hopefully he can
agree.
be there. But Chris, before we wrap up tonight,
Well,
any NBA trades that
Well, I was gonna
stick
say
out to you?
I'm gonna read off some NBA trades, Ben, and I want you to give them a grade. Do you have a grading scale in mind?
Uh, yeah. It's Waste Management Open Week. We're
Yeah,
gonna
give me.
go A, like the best trades like hole in one, and like an F or a bad trade is like give me triple bogey.
No, no, no. We're not going golf terms. Let's do holes on. holes on the course. Holes at TPC Scottsdale. 16 being the greatest hole, you know?
Okay. And then just some random average hole being bad.
Yeah. Just tell me if just or you know, maybe that's not our best. Yeah, let's do birdies and things like that. I think that's probably a
Okay.
better idea.
Okay.
Okay. So the Spurs acquire De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings receive Zach LaVine and some guy named City Sissoko. That's totally
Close
wrong.
enough. Close
But
enough.
and a bunch of picks. The Kings 6 picks. And the Bulls receive Zach Collins, Kevin Herter, and Trey Jones. Who first off, who won that trade? And
Spurs.
Spurs won the trade, okay. And that was a
I would give it a birdie. I don't
birdie.
think it's a hole in one. Uh, The only reason I don't think it's a hole in one, I watched it last night. I tweeted about it. It was fun to see De'Aaron Fox on the Spurs. He had his debut last night against the Hawks. The only reason I don't give it a hole in one is that De'Aaron Fox is like 5 or 6 years older than Wemby. So not to say, I mean, Wemby's so good, so young, he's going to have multiple timelines in
Gotcha.
terms of the guys around him. But De'Aaron's just a little bit too old to be like, holy cow. I think he's 27. Um, but yeah, it's a great trade for the Spurs. We'll see if they can sneak into the play-in. I think they're 11th or 12th right now. Those teams are within a game or two of each other. The Bulls, I would just give like a bogey or a double bogey, just because they held on to Levine so long. The rumor was that several people had even offered like first or like 1 or 2 first-round picks, like in the last couple of years for him. I didn't realize he had been in Chicago for 8 years.
Yeah.
And he was in Minnesota before that. But yeah, he Sacramento did fine to get off of him. It sounded like everyone needed a fresh start between them and De'Aaron Fox, and they got back a really good underrated player, I think, in Zach LaVine. Uh, so I'll give them like a par just because I feel like they're not going to get any better per se. And the Bulls can have a double bogey.
Yeah. The Bulls just they got to pick a direction, and I don't think they will. Okay, the next trade. The Mavs receive Caleb Martin, and the 76ers receive Quentin Grimes and a second round pick. Who won the trade, or does it even matter?
Uh, this one kind of matters. The 76ers won the trade. The reason the Mavs would do it is financial implications. Quentin Grimes is up for an extension. He's 5 years younger than Caleb Martin. Uh, I would give it like a double bogey for the Mavs. One, because it feels like it's just a trade. They're trying to get another wing. Uh, is it Caleb or Cody Martin? They're twins, and they both got traded, I think, this week.
Caleb.
But Caleb, who I think he came up with the Heat, so he's had like good playoff experience there. He was on the team that went to the finals in 2023, but he's hurt. The trade was almost rescinded. Like the Mavs had the chance to get out of it because his hip is lingering longer than they thought. And so it came out today that the Mavs received an extra second round pick to not rescind it, basically. The 76ers get a young guy who's played well. He shot well. I mean, the Mavs fans that we talked to, shout out Ryan, who's going through some stuff. But, uh, and by stuff, I mean the Mavericks.
Just life as a Mavs fan.
Yeah. Uh, he'd been like a guy that they really liked having in Dallas. He has played well. He shot, I want to say, like close to 40% from three. And they gave him away just because they didn't want to extend him next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't understand what they're doing in Dallas. I think Nico Harrison
I think
might
he's
be
trying to
he might be a genius, or he might just be the worst GM in the league.
or
But
both.
so talking about Caleb Martin's brother, he was sent to the Suns, and Vava
Vasily.
Vasilije Micic was sent to the Suns with him, and the Hornets receive Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, that was
Um,
just a trade for the Suns to get off his contract.
okay. Well, all right. Quick and easy. Quick and easy.
Yeah, I don't really
Uh,
have a grade for any of those because, or that one just feels very like
business.
it was. Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder and Lindy Waters were sent to the Jazz. Or no, sent to the Pistons. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
After they were both traded from Golden State, and then the Jazz received KJ Martin from the Pistons. No, yes, yes, yes.
Interesting to see if Wendy can stay on. Obviously, want him to play well and stick in the league. He's had some bright spots for Golden State. He had bright spots for us. He just wasn't a spot for him in Oklahoma City anymore. And Golden State's desperate to keep Steph's competitive window open as long as possible. But
Speaking of Steph's competitive window, what do you think about Jimmy Butler, the Jimmy Butler trade? The Warriors receive Jimmy Butler. They send away Aaron Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Lindy Waters, and Dennis Schroeder. Like, what are your thoughts on if that makes them competitive again?
I think for them, if I was to give this a scale, I would probably give it a par. I don't think it's a bad trade. I think it's a good trade in terms of let's try to extend this competitive window. What I want to see is how the heck are Draymond and Jimmy going to get
Punches will be
along?
thrown.
Yeah, like I mean, Draymond's going to go on his podcast and talk about how Jimmy's like brewing coffee in the hut. And it's I don't know if they'll realize that like okay, this is our last ditch effort at trying to be competitive for at least to the extent to matter in the playoffs.
Right.
But I mean, it'll be. I don't think it doesn't like they don't like scare me any more than they did. Like I don't want to play Steph in the series. I mean, every team in the West has a player I don't want to play in a series. Uh,
Right.
but Steph obviously is at the top of the list, and Jimmy really elevates in the playoffs. So I think it's they got rid of Andrew Wiggins, which was a tough one for them. They really liked him there. He's in Miami now. I give him a par just because think it's I think it's a good move, but I don't think it like changes anything them to me. And I'll give the Heat honestly a par as well because they finally got Jimmy's
Out of
drama.
Jimmy's way,
So
yeah.
yeah,
All right. Final trade. I think this is the weirdest trade that was made. Um, the Bucks traded Chris Middleton, a guy who helped them win a finals, for Kyle. Essentially, it was for Kyle Kuzma, a guy who has played just terrible basketball for the Wizards all season
on a terrible team and a
on a
terrible situation.
terrible situation. I I don't understand this from the Bucks' point of view. I don't understand it from the Wizards' point of view. The Wizards want to lose. Are they just going to like try to trade Chris Middleton this summer for a better pick? Why? I mean, there's a lot going on in that trade that I don't understand.
I would give it a shoot. I almost might give the Bucks a triple bogey, uh, just because I really just do not get. There's no competitive advantage to Kuzma being on the team. I mean, he won a championship with the Lakers, and I remember when he was drafted, he was like supposed to be the best young player. They still had Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, and Lonzo Ball. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. What I think they're also wasting one of Giannis's like. I mean, Giannis is 30. I think they're starting to waste his prime. Uh, Middleton was hurt. He's been battling injuries, and from what I've heard, he's not really defending at that high of a level anymore. Um, he might be veteran leadership to the Wizards. They have him and Brogdon now, and they also traded for Marcus Smart. Um, so they're going to hope to get a top draft pick and try to build some kind of culture. They have some Oklahoma City guys in the front office now, I think.
I guess that
Uh,
makes sense. Maybe it's a culture move for the Wizards.
like we had Al Horford kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting, but I do think it's the beginning of the end for the Bucks and Giannis. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's traded in the next year or two, which I think is the
Traded.
biggest, yeah, like out of nowhere.
You're trading him. You're not letting him walk.
I would, if you're the Bucks, they're
No,
a
no,
small
you're
market
the
team.
GM of the Bucks right now.
Yeah,
Ben's the GM of the Bucks. GM Ben, put that hat on and tell me you're trading Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I would trade Giannis.
Wow. Okay.
Your your window with him is closing. Everyone around him, like I mean, Dame's older. Brooke Lopez is pushing 40, um, and in the NBA in that small market environment, if you, I mean, the best way for those small market teams, as you see with the Thunder, is to get as many picks, have as many bites at the apple as you can get, and evaluate talent in a way that creates a better team. And I think Milwaukee would have to replicate that to move on into the next era of Milwaukee Buck basketball. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Those are yeah, I agree with that. I think um I don't know if I'd go as far as trade Giannis, but I think it's better than letting him walk.
well, I could see him asking out. Like if it feels like they're not being competitive enough for him, I could see him kind of being the one being like, "Hey, I only got 4 or 5 more years left.
Right.
Let me go try to win." And you already have a title with him, so
Right.
you have the good vibes and all that with him. So, um, but one more trade that I think is huge is Brandon Ingram going to Toronto, the first star leaving the Western Conference to go to the Eastern
Yeah,
Conference.
yeah. It felt like the West Coast was like the Hollywood Walk of Fame collecting all these stars.
Yeah,
Just
uh,
crazy.
but I don't know what Toronto's doing. Brandon Ingram is good. He's not great. He's made an All-Star team, but Toronto's definitely in the tank for Cooper Flag movement. We'll see uh, what that roster looks like. He won't play tomorrow night. He's getting
Because he's
injured.
injured.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if it was fully injured or I'm getting traded injured. Uh,
Okay.
so we'll see. Crazy deadline. All started with Luca, um, and here we are going up into the All Star break, and all the Thunder care about is how does Mr. Chet Holmgren look tomorrow night
Right.
against the Raptors.
So
Um,
I had this thought. Do you think and this can just be a thought I leave you with. Do you think that this deadline at all was a reaction from GMs because of the Luca trade? Everyone's like, we got to make some moves. Do you think at all it was like that, or do you think these moves would have happened regardless of if Luca was still in the Mavs jersey?
I think some of the bad ones would have still happened because bad trades are just bad trades. Um, but I do think that I'm sure it kind of like kicked some people into gear, and people talk about the West being open because the number one seed is a team that's only won one playoff series, and even as a Thunder fan, you kind of have to acknowledge that we haven't technically done anything yet, regardless of how good we're playing.
Right, right,
And so
right.
teams have felt like they need to. I mean, I think the Lakers, they got Mark Williams as a trade we didn't talk about. I'm a big Mark Williams guy. We'll see how he does defensively, but getting Luca rim running, lob threat is huge. You've seen what he did with Derek Lively. Uh, so the Lakers should be decent. Uh, the Mavs, we have no idea what they're going to look like because AD hasn't made his debut yet. But I'm sure some of it was reactionary and it might have just spurred people to be a little bit more open to dealing. So it's
Yeah,
crazy. It's crazy. It was the craziest deadline I think I can remember. So
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I did look up Brooke Lopez's age for those wondering. He is not pushing 40. He's only 36.
he's on
Um,
that. He's closer to
let's
40 than he is 30.
I think, people start we don't want to like push people over the age that they are, right? I'm still 29, so I don't want to be called
Yeah,
30 yet.
I'm
Um,
about to be 29, so I probably should start thinking like that too.
but yeah, just a side note, his nickname is Splash Mountain. So
That's a top tier
that's
nickname.
and that's what we'll leave you with.
He's a big Disney guy. I should know that for a fact, so that's perfect.
Oh,
But
it's yeah, good for him.
fun fact on the pod. Brooke Lopez and Robin Lopez, big Disney guys.
Well,
So
yeah, they are very large people. And if they go to Disney, they would be big Disney guys. That's very true.
exactly. But yeah, there you have it. Chet's back. Trade deadline's passed, and we're in the home stretch of the All Star break, and then we go see what this team does the rest of the year.
In the playoffs.
But with that, we'll talk to y'all next week. Appreciate y'all, and see you.
Hiya!